Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is the first source for trophies. Should every kid get a trophy? If you're reading this, you've chosen this as your argumentative topic for the next 6 weeks. I'm probably going to spend more time talking about source one and adding things on here than I am on source two and source three and four. You guys will kind of get into a groove and you'll know the expectations. Let's take a look at what you're going to have to answer at the bottom all the way down. In your own words, what is the gist of this article? Your response should be a minimum of 4 to 5 complete sentences. Now, you guys have heard me use the word gist before in our own activities in my room. The gist is a very, very short summary, a minimum of 4 to 5 complete sentences. It's a short summary of what the article was about. Since we're doing an argumentative piece, you should be able to identify at the end of the piece which side of the argument this author is choosing. Okay. You're going to want to type that out in a complete sentence. And how do you know? This should also answer the basic who, what, where, when, why, how. Okay. So kind of keep that in mind as I'm reading. Also, in the sources that are source one, two, and three, not four, which is a video, I've annotated them. Some of the more difficult vocabulary I've highlighted, and off to the side is it has a definition or an example. I'm not going to stop to read those as I read through, but you should pause it when I get to that. And if you take a look at the definition and then hit play to keep going. All right, so I'm going to get started. So, source one, Should Kids Get a Trophy for Showing Up by NPR, Corey Turner. Talk about a spirited debate. Just Google the question, Should kids get trophies for participation? And the first page yields headlines like Losing is Good for You and Hell yes, all the little leagues should get trophies. I remember collecting a shelf full of participation trophies from years playing YMCA soccer. Did they make me who I am or spoil me rotten? On the no side. No, says Stanford psychology professor Carol Dweck. Kids should not be given trophies simply for participating, she says. Dweck explains her answer with an anecdote from a mother she'd recently spoken to. Her daughter rarely showed up for her soccer team. She had a terrible attitude, Dweck says. In spite of that, at the end she got a giant trophy and would have been devastated had she not. Dweck concedes or admits a child shouldn't have to be the best player on the field to get a trophy, but it should reward something like improvement or team spirit. Up next, Susan Harder, a professor of developmental psychology at the University of Denver. What do I think about that? I think it's a little bit excessive, Harder says, leaning toward no. Instead of a firm no, though, she reframes my question. At what time of a child's life do we want to bring home the cruel reality that somebody's better than somebody else? I got a lot of questions as answers to my unanswerable question, like this one from Tove Klein, author of the book How Toddlers Thrive. I'm always thinking about what is that debate really about? Do you really care if everyone gets a trophy? Klein says kids should play because they enjoy playing. She argues play should be intrinsically rewarding and that kids don't need an adult saying, you get a trophy because you played well. So far, the score is roughly 3-0. There's no one out there willing to argue on behalf of the humble participation trophy. The yes vote. Kenneth Barish, a clinical associate professor of psychology at Weill Cornell Medical College, isn't afraid to say it. He thinks kids should get trophies for participation. This is a minority view now, he says with a laugh, admitting he has had to defend the idea even within his own family. Barish says he has seen no harm in adults encouraging participation with a trophy, and that he's found no evidence the practice leads to entitlement among kids. It may be all they get, says George Perez, Vice President of Youth Development and Social Responsibility for the YMCA, another yes vote. The Y has made a habit of giving participation trophies, he explains, because we want to anchor the experience. A few years back, Perez says several young men visited him with YMCA baseball trophies they'd received as kids. And these weren't fancy first place trophies. They were tiny, given simply for participating. But the men had kept them and clearly valued them. Perez argues these trophies act as an important marker to say, I did this, I finished this. That's why those kids hold on to those trophies, Perez says. That's why mom doesn't throw them away. Wait, she doesn't? The basement. And that's when it occurred to me. I don't know what happened to my shelf full of participation trophies. If they'd been important to me or my mom, markers, as Perez says, I would presumably know where they are. I went down in the basement, my mother tells me after I call and ask if she knows what happened to the trophies. I was appalled at the number of boxes that have your name on them, and none of them said trophies. She insists I threw the awards away years ago because they don't mean anything to me. But then she surprises me by telling me she did find one. Not a trophy at all. A dark plum colored ribbon with gold print on it that says Decanter YMCA soccer participant 1983. I would have been 7 years old, and this is likely my very first award for participation. I have no idea how it survived for 3 decades, whether I saved it or my mother scooped it out of the dustbin years ago. But it did, this fragile little ribbon, and I'm so inclined to make that another yes vote in the participation debate, which means we have a tie. No winner, no loser. Trophies for everyone, or not. Okay, so because this is source one, this addresses both sides of the argument, and you need to make sure that you address that in your gist. If you guys have any questions or if you want to talk about this article, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk about it with you. See you for source two.